We are live.
Good afternoon. I'd like to call this meeting to order and acknowledge that we're in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Inuit, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Cynthia Stevens, and I'll be chairing this afternoon's hearing. Joining me from the Board of Revision on Zoom is Ms. Diane Knight, and in the hearing room is Ms. Linda McFadden. Our assessor this afternoon is Mr. Jeremy Pohl, and our secretary is Belen Rojo. We'll be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decision with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with each property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. Process will repeat for each item on the docket. The session will close after all applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the Board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing items 1 through 8 on our docket today. And before we begin, I'm just going to indicate that we are going to take a brief recess. Our applicant is delayed and can join us in a few moments. So we're going to recess right now until about 1:30. So if everyone could be back at 1:30, we will start the hearing. Thank you.
We are live.
Thank you. Good afternoon again, everyone. I'm going to call the meeting back to order, and we can begin with Ms. Rojo swearing in, please, the assessor and the applicant.
Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Jeremy Ryan Pohl.
And you affirm the evidence you're about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Trevor Smith.
And you affirm the evidence you're about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll begin this morning with this afternoon with the first item on our docket, and that is Unit 10, 3965 Portage Avenue. So Mr. Pohl, please proceed when you're ready.
Sure. Roll number is 075690333200. Again, Unit 10 of 3965 Portage. Assessed values for 2023 is for $4,943,000. It is a car dealership. It was built roughly in 2004. Is approximately it's the size is approximately 19,359 square feet. On page 2 shows the income expense questionnaire that we sent to them. There's a little difference of area at 17,257, but I'll kind of review that as we go along. It is owner occupied. They fill up their costs in full, and of course they have tendencies in the bottom. Tim Hortons car dealership plus a Tim Hortons. I don't believe that Tim Hortons is a point of issue, so I'll put any weight to that, or I'm going to explain anything about that. It'll save us some time. I'll just generally read it through, but the COVID form is on the next page, generally indicating minor impact. Page 3 is our comparables. And I'll go through it quick. We have an educated panel chairperson today. This argument's heard a lot. All these car dealerships are owner-occupied. We don't have any rental data that we could bring in and use. The nature of the car business is that they're all owner-occupied. So what we do is we go out into the marketplace and look for a similar property and use economic substitution to put in place. So for in this case here, these are usually always located on a retail node, a place where there's lots of residential traffic. It's not buried in the back of an industrial park somewhere or like. So you look for places that are similar build, that are in a retail location, and see what they're going for. In this case here, we're using big box stores, more or less. They're a similar nature build. They are typically steel roof, masonry wall, slab on grade construction, similar to what the subject properties are that are today. You can say a little bit different in that most of the subject properties would be built out a little bit greater than a big box store. A big box store usually has space for your day-to-day operations. You have for your your consumer-based walkthrough, and then there's usually a smaller to mid-sized storage warehouse in the back. Usually not a lot, because typically what you get is when it comes through, it gets right out on the floor. You can't buy anything. So they put everything on the floor. So basically, what you're looking for is what are these rent? Oh, sorry.
I'm having trouble. You're going in and it'll ouch a little bit. You could just make sure that you're close to the microphone, thank you.
I'm bringing it closer. How much? Where did I cut off?
You didn't cut off completely. It's just kind of mumbly. That's all.
Yeah, we could. It was just it was kind of warbling a bit, but I can hear you better now that you move closer.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Okay, so the idea is to go to the marketplace, look for a similar building, similar location, see what rent you get. In this case here, we're using big box stores. So if this segment of car dealership wanted to actually occupy space and rent in a retail location, what would they have to pay? It would be at least what these big box stores are paying. If you're going to develop a site better than, and usually they are, most of them are better than a big box store, they're built out more, as you can see through Mr. Smith's briefs, you would typically get a higher rate because you would have more there to develop. So in this case here, I'm comfortable with doing the retail end of it and just going through a retail comps. As you can see, for retail nodes throughout the city, for newer buildings, you can note the age of the buildings. They're all about 2000 or newer, similar to the subject properties that you hear today. You're getting approximately about $18 a square foot. So this is about 500,000 square feet of inventory. It's the average, weighted average, and median are all very tight, good analysis. So this is generally what the retail market pays, business pays to occupy space in these buildings. And if the property owners were to go into the marketplace and seek out a building to be built for them in an area like this, this is at least what they would be paying in rent. So from that perspective, that's the rent that we'll be using to defend what we have on appeal today. So, and I'll go through this in a bit more detail for the first one, as I'm sure Trevor will as well, because this is the same argument you're going to be hearing 7 more times over. It's the exact same argument. So we go on to page 5. Those are just the rents for the Tims. Obviously, that's not in contention, so we'll skip over that. Page 6 is our workup, the car dealership. It's approximately 70,111 square feet. We have about a $15.12 rent on it. Again, about $3 off of where market would be. We then have a potential rent coming to $258,718 for vacancy loss at 2%. Our vacancy rate, I should say, at 2%. Our effective gross income would give $253,544. Our expense non-recoverables are 3%. Our shortfall is $6, and subtracted from that, your net operating income gives $243,885. Capped at our market parameter of our market cap at 6.25 gives us a actual assessment of $3,902,000. So if you look on the next page, that is the restaurant, the Tim Hortons that's on the site, which is demised on the opposite end, but it's still on one roll number. And in lieu of going through that, as there's no objection to the assessment, it's $1,041,000. So on the next page is our combined income stream. As you can see, the two summate to the 4,943,000 I've asked today. When we go through, I'll just go through the photos of the subject property. On page 11, you see it is part of the condominium group. You see that dealership is at the north side of it, and underneath that, there's a dividing line of fence line there. That's where the Tim Hortons is. So part of our analysis, we looked at what the actual sales occurred in the marketplace. On page 12, we look and we see several comparables that were sold, and we see that the rates that they were sold for, again, this isn't approaching the reference date though. These are just historically what these buildings have gone for. So we see about $313 a square foot, 284, 277, 225, 161. So those are the direct sales of actual sales of the actual real estate, and not the going concern that would be going on with them. So as you can see on the next page as well, are what they actually were. So on page 14, page 15, page 16, page 17 and 18, and page 19, those are the actual comparables that the chart was referencing. So on page 20 is one of the leases that were in place in the marketplace. This I researched, I actually emailed. This was an agreement to purchase. It was actual appraisal done, and it was a purchase for $6 million. It was leased with an agreement with intent to buy, which closed on March 1st, 2017. It was leased from January 16th to 2012, so about 5 years. There was one term, I think there was one term at the top of this, but they acted on the end of the first term. And the option to buy was at the renter's discretion. They could walk away, they could purchase it, but the ownership group of the building, the real estate, could not walk away from it. So basically, it was a rent and see how the site works for you. Then they purchased it, which they did. So the rent in place there was approximately $25, which is above market. But again, they disclose that as well. So that is one of the leases that we have. One of the other bits of information we have approaching the reference date, we actually had a car dealership that was listed for sale or for lease. This was on Narren. As you can see, it's for approximately 17,000 square feet, just off the real estate. I should say just off the strip along there, which you would think would be more automobile related. This is a bit further up from that, but it's in close proximity to it, close enough anyway. So as you can see on the following page, on page 23, they listed it for approximately $3.5 million if you were to buy it, and if you were to rent it, they were looking for a rental rate of about $16 per square foot net. So as we can see, in a non-condominiumized area, just outside of the strip of where you would expect these to go for car dealerships on Narren and Regent, you were still getting about $16.50, or at least asking for, I should say. So as we go through on the following pages, on page 25 to the end of the brief, is just the one word that we kind of referenced is Unit 90, 3965 Portage. This was the last one heard. And up until my research into the municipal board, there's a lot of these preparing to go to the municipal board. I believed it was the only one we really had. I'm not going to get into the order itself too much, or the other orders that I could have brought in. The board has kind of turned its eye away from that. But generally, retail space was looked at as comparisons, and we're simply going to be revisiting that one to allow for that to occur again. There may be some offshoot properties that were more industrial flavored. There's a few out there that are more could be considered that would be better fit parameters. There's none on the docket here today that would meet that. So we're just looking at the retail aspect. So you can read that through that for your leisure if you like. But when we get back to the actual income stream, I feel that this property would rent out for at least $15 a square foot, most likely north of 18. And with our standard parameters line, that the 4,943,000 is appropriate and should be confirmed here today.
Thank you, Mr. Poole. Mr. Smith, any questions?
I do, yes. So as all of our properties today are in the same auto park, all of the questions are essentially going to be the same with perhaps some minor wrinkles. So Mr. Poole and I have spoken in advance, and I guess like to ask all of my questions up front on the first property, more or less, for the most part, and just have that information carry forward if that's okay with the panel members.
I believe so. Any of my other panel members have any issue with that?
No, I do not.
No? Okay, perfect. So yes, we will keep that in mind, that both what Mr. Poole has presented on this first property and your questions will be carried through to the other properties.
Great, thank you. So bear with me. I certainly do have some questions, so we'll try and be as efficient as we can, but there are a number of points to consider here, of course. So I guess the place I will start, Jeremy, is page number 6, which is the vehicle dealership workup.
Okay.
So the capitalization rate that has been assigned to these dealerships for this cycle is 6.25%. Is that consistent with the last cycle, or has there been an adjustment in cap rate?
Off the top of my head, I can't. There's been no change for model for myself. Honestly, I can't remember what the capitalization rate was for the last cycle. I didn't fit it through the last cycle, so to speak. I don't really compare assessments to assessments from one cycle to the next. So
fair enough. I guess just to further point on that. Sorry?
I believe it's about the same.
Okay, just further point on that page then, for the subject property, for the dealership portion, as well as the other dealerships here today, these values are all model driven, are they? They're not site specific?
I made no adjustments to the model.
Okay. Okay, so let's flip forward from page 6 to page 9 then. I believe in your statement there, you're comparing, from a rental perspective, you're comparing the vehicle dealerships to big box stores in terms of the rental comparables provided. Is that correct?
Correct. Okay,
so when I look at the capitalization chart on page number 9, the big box stores would generally be located within power centers. Is that correct?
Correct.
And our capitalization rate range here is 6.35% to 7% for power centers.
Yeah, you go. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. We're kind of cutting in and out there.
Just the 20th and 80th percentiles are 6.35 up to 7%, and yet the cap rate that's being applied here is 6.25%. Is the city considering these properties to be big box stores, or just can you explain that modeling a bit?
Whereas I can't go into the model. I didn't set these model rates for capitalization rate, but generally it'd be regional or it'd be power center. Some of these are more obviously power center, but some of these are also strip. You know, you consider a standalone. So I'm sorry, some of your comparables or some of the subject properties? No, some of the capitalization. If you look at some of the subject properties today here, you probably look for it to be more of a power center. Correct? It'd be number of properties all gathered together. It'd be more leaning towards that. But some of these are standalone dealerships outside of condominiums, not on this particular docket, but on other other VCs are standalone. That's what I'm getting
Okay.
at. So
Okay,
in the past,
sorry, go ahead.
I believe in the past we did do some discerning between condominium and outside standalones. Generally, what we've found through the cycles are that we redacted on that a little bit and treated them all the same. We used to have a difference of vacancy rate. I do believe there may have been a bit of a slight difference of capitalization rate at one point in time, but I believe now we do uniformly throughout the stock.
Okay, you would agree with me, I'm sure there's been no trades of vehicle dealerships on which capitalization rates could be developed and used for modeling?
No, like I said, there are no sales that we can review. There are no rents, obviously. So this is a marketplace that you really couldn't apply an income stream to, because there's just not enough of there aren't any that participate in a rental environment. They're all owner occupied. So like what I'm saying is, you're not selling a place that has an existing tenant and buying that existing income stream.
Right.
It's sold, you're typically buying the building, an empty building, but there's no income stream there as far as rental, real estate rental information from. You have a going concern that either stays on board, could change hands, or whatnot, but there is no actual leasing place to rent the building or the property at an arm's length way.
Okay,
Sorry. I just, can you turn your microphone up? So if you go to the mute button and there's a little arrow to the right of the mute button, and if you go to audio settings, can you turn your microphone up, please?
Me?
Yes.
Or,
So if you go on the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see the mute button.
well, I have a Samsung and an iPhone 4.
Oh, it's on the Zoom. It's on the Zoom call though. It's on the Zoom screen when you're looking at the screen.
So more would be 3 little buttons.
There could be, yeah. There's a little, on mine, there's an arrow up and then it says audio settings.
Mine just has mute, no mute, and then has 3 little buttons when it doesn't give you that option.
Okay. All right. That's okay. Thank you. You're just kind of cutting in and out. That's all.
We want to have a muting setting, but no, it doesn't give me the option. Sorry.
Okay.
I can pull it closer, but I'm not sure how much that will work. You're gonna just see my mouth moving.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry to
Okay.
interrupt you guys.
oh, that's quite all right. So just further to, not to the capitalization, but the comparison to big box stores in power center locations. So I think, I believe Jeremy had stated that they're selected based on the situation and the structure being the same. So steel roof, slab on grade, concrete construction.
Yeah.
Is that accurate? So somewhat facetiously, but that would also apply to industrial properties. It would also apply to apartment buildings, office structures as well, right?
No, because like I said, we're looking for we're looking for a retail environment. Location is a factor.
Yes.
You don't have a car dealership in the back of an industrial setting,
Right.
in an industrial park, where you don't have one.
Referring more to the structure rather than the location.
Yeah, you have to look at both location and structure.
Of course. So let's look at location then, and the rental comparables. And this may take a little bit of time. I'll try again and be efficient with this. Looking at page number 4 and the rental comparables that are here, I've gone through each one of them. And I guess I'll try to summarize in question form if I can. So these are all big box power center locations with 1 or 2 exceptions. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
So we would be looking dominantly at the Polo Park area, the immediate Polo Park area. Some properties on the IKEA development across from Seasons of Tuxedo, the power centers at Keniston and McGilvery, the Garden City Power Center location across from Garden City Shopping Center, and then the Regent Lajimoje Power Center node as well. Is that fair to say? That's where these are?
Yeah, when I did this study, I looked at any building that was about a 2000 and age-wise anyways, and forward from that point in time to match the stock of the actual subject properties. These are what's in the marketplace. There's been no selection. There's been no selecting of like if there was more, I would have brought it all. Like this is all that we have. So these are just where the comparables come from. They're all retail locations. They're all high traffic flow areas, and the like. So.
Okay, that was yeah, not suggesting that you were selecting ones and what was being included, just identifying where they are. So we're looking at power centered nodes here. So when I went through the properties, and again, bear with me here, the tenancies that we're looking at are tenancies such as Staples, Ashley Home Store, Michaels, Lazy Boy Furniture, Giant Tiger, Marshalls and HomeSense, Dollarama, Cineplex Theater, Home Outfitters, Sport Check, Best Buy, Petland, Bed Bath & Beyond, Old Navy, Marks. I can go on. I don't know that I need to enumerate all of them, but that's what we're looking at essentially, right?
Yeah, except for this Cineplex Theater, I don't believe I have that in there. But generally, it's all been retail, precisely where you're indicating. There's a few Good Lifes in there as well. But generally, that's the nature of the retail market for big box stores. Right.
So not to dispute, but 817 St. James H003, that is the Cineplex theater property.
Sorry, which comparable are you referring to?
Number 16. It's on the Polo Park site itself. It's the Cineplex Theater.
No, it's Pier 1 Imports.
Then the address is incorrect because I've gone through what that could possibly be, and it's the only 817 is the theater itself. There's a different.
I'll look into that. I may like Polo Park itself has a lot of civic addresses. I may have got that wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
but it is the Pier 1, or was the Pier 1, I should say.
I see. I'll just note that here.
That would be a pretty small theater, 10,000 square feet. Sorry.
Yes, no, I thought that was odd, but that is the actual address. So let's look at these in a little bit more detail here then. So just to, I guess, identify the differences. So there's a big concentration in the Polo Park area. So the properties that we're looking at on St. James here, number 3, that would be the Brick, again, adjacent to Polo Park and Costco. 1000 St. James Street, that's Ashley Home Store, again, adjacent to Polo Park. 840 St. James, of which I believe there's a number that are, well, there's a whole stretch of them there. We have Michaels at 840 St. James. We have Home Outfitters at 710 St. James. Best Buy at 810 St. James. These would all be in that stretch that is the Canadian Tire, Old Navy, Michaels, Save On Foods, immediately across the road from Polo Park.
That would be correct.
Okay. So let's move down 550 Sterling Lion Parkway. So IKEA is located on the corner of Sterling Lion and Keniston there on the southwest corner. And 550 Sterling Lion is the retail development immediately adjacent to that to the west, right?
Correct.
Between Cabela's and IKEA.
Yep.
Okay, so that would be Dollarama, Eau Claire, what else do we have here? Sorry,
River City Sports.
there, yes, FXR outlet. So that would be that node. The 3673 Portage Avenue. So this is the power center development on the old Unicity site, correct?
Which parable are you looking at?
It's number 18.
18. Okay. Catch up with you.
I believe that is the sport check.
Yep.
So that would be on a site with other supportive retail such as Walmart, Canadian Tire, Winners, all of the other development on site.
Yeah, they're generally exactly what you're describing.
Okay.
They're big box tenants. They sell retail product to residential consumers.
Right. Okay. So again, just to identify areas again, number 15, 841 Leela. This would be either Marshalls or HomeSense on the power center development across from Garden City, correct?
Yep.
So it's supported by Home Depot, Canadian Tire, Winners, Garden City Shopping Center itself.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I will leave my questions on the comparables at that for the moment. Sorry, there's a lot of material here. I just want to make sure we cover it. Moving forward to your page number 12 there. So 2537 Pembina Highway. That transaction was similar to the one that you noted on Regent Avenue, correct?
Yeah, 1496 Regent. Yes, they were same purchaser or same renter than ultimately purchaser.
So that would be Jim Pattison Subaru coming into the market for both of those properties, right? 2537 Pembina and 1496 Regent.
Yes.
Okay. Are you aware of with 2537 Pembina Highway what activities on site now?
They tore it down, and I believe it's multifamily that's going up there, if I'm correct.
So the vehicle dealership is no longer in existence then? Not
there, no. And at just so we're clear, over at 1496 Regent, they actually tore the older dealership down for that as well, and they put up a new dealership there too. Those are both things that would not have been known at purchase. So obviously, either they looked at for 1496 Regent to either had a game plan all along to tear it down, or they got a letter in the mail saying you need to improve your dealership, and then they looked at it and obviously went the other way and developed a new dealership. So, but that would have been several years after the purchase. So.
And unit or your comparable number 5 on page number 12. The transaction at unit 90 there, are you aware of background on that property?
I tried to get some background on it via another agent, but I'm not sure. I'm still doing my due diligence on that as part of the municipal boards or the municipal board hearing that will be going forward, as I will with all these sales. If you have any information that you'd like to share.
I will address that, I think, in my presentation. I'll just move us forward here. Sorry, I've marked a couple of pages. Just want to make sure I get to them. So the letter that you refer to on page 20, the indication is that the original lease was struck at an above market rent, correct? With an option to purchase the property done at the same time. As in, when they entered into the contract to lease the property, they had the option at the expiry of that lease to purchase it at that time at a set amount, correct?
Yeah, like just so we're clear, it's pretty clear in the email, but I'll further explain it. There was 2 terms to purchase. They had the option to purchase at the end of each term. They chose to do that at the first term. The ownership group of the property had no option to not sell. It was only at the option of the renter to whether they wanted to sell or they could not and move on, kind of thing. So, or not purchase and move on, kind of. So it was at their end that they decided to exercise their option, and they did. Obviously, they did well in the dealership that they have there. We wouldn't be moving forward if we didn't. So at that point, it was a set value, and there was an appraisal done on it, and it was for real estate only. So
the purchase price of $6 million that they've got down here, that was set 5 years earlier at the time of the lease was entered into, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So both parties were satisfied at that time.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move forward to page number 21, 22, 23, 24. So this is the former Focus Hyundai building on Nairn Avenue towards Lagimodier, correct?
Correct.
And this property, in my research, came onto the market in March of 2020. And I believe you'll probably agree with me, it has not either leased and or sold at this time, correct?
There was a lease in place, but it was not one that I would consider bringing as evidence of marketplace. It was actually a COVID site. So I believe there was a couple-year lease there. It's no longer a COVID site. And obviously the circumstances involving that lease would not be typical for market. The province went out and looked for sites where they could actually occupy a building, something like this, where they could have a lot of food.
So not really evidence of a market rent then, fair enough. But to date, it has not either leased or transacted in the market, despite being on the market since March 2020.
Not that I'm aware of.
Let's move forward. In relation to the city's valuation model for vehicle dealerships on page number 6 for all of the properties here today. Looking at the municipal board order that from 2004, so quite some time ago, but from 2004, the methodology that the appellant used for the subject property included consideration of non-recoverable infrastructure expenses, both short-term and on a replacement basis. And if I look at the decision that the municipal board made on your page number 32, it indicates that and I'm just going to wait for everybody to get there, I guess, so that we're on the same page.
Yeah, I'm there.
Yep, we're there.
So halfway down the page, we have the less indicated, then we have the expenses that are itemized. So your typical management expenses, other expenses, shortfall expenses, and then they indicate non-recoverable infrastructure expenses of $10,700. Moving down the page further, that being the short-term recovery of annual costs. Moving down further, you have another line indicating less for infrastructure, that being the net present value of future rehabilitation. So that would be the replacement of the infrastructure costs for the subject property and for their portion of the condominium properties in this decision by the municipal board. The City of Winnipeg abided by this decision and made their valuation on that basis for every cycle up until 2020, I believe. Can you offer insight as to why the modeling has changed in that regard?
Yeah, I believe it was a cycle before that we changed it to. It's been a couple cycles now.
I'm having trouble hearing you, Jeremy.
All right, sorry. Better?
Yeah.
I'll try not to yell. If I sound like I'm yelling, I'm not yelling. Just making sure you guys can hear me. No, we changed that a couple cycles ago. It wasn't just 2020. I believe it was 18 as well. We've changed it because A, we don't get any of that information from the property owners as far as the actual expenses. B, when we inquire with them through case management or through other appeals or revision, we don't really have a consensus that the agents or the property owners actually know what it is. There's a study done way back in the day, and we don't know if it's applicable anymore. When we look at the actual, how do you phrase it the right way? When we look at the marketplace, when we're in at around $18 and north of $18 around there, we're applying about 15, 14, 13 is typically what the market was leading up. Of course, it's increased now and we're reflecting a bit higher now. We're further away from the actual market where we think it should be. That should be enough to offset those costs. So I know that's a point of contention with some of the agents in the ownership group, but we feel it's no longer bearing on it. And then it's also in my mind's eye, I look at it, I look at everything when it comes to appeal. Is it equitable? Is it okay? If you look at, say, a large retail or power center, essentially here in this subject property here in this collection of properties you have here, it's a driveway that goes around and there's a little lake and it's nice. You have a roadway you put in and the infrastructure that you have to have in place. What is the difference between the cost bared for this versus the cost bared for a power center as far as the asphalting that needs to be done there, the road work that needs to go in place there? I don't think it's necessarily equitable just because of the condominium. So that's one of the issues that we're going to be dealing with the actual municipal board. Our position has changed on that, and I may have glossed over that in my presentation. I should have probably took a couple moments to discuss that, but that's generally why we do it, and we feel it's appropriate. So.
Okay, so just further to that point then. So I believe at the beginning of that discussion, you had mentioned that the lift in rental rate is covering off that particular issue. Is that what you had indicated?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
I'm sorry. At the beginning of that discussion, I believe you had mentioned that the lift in rental rates that you're showing for these properties offsets the additional expenses from infrastructure. Was that what you did?
Generally, yes. But it's also a question in my mind's eye: is it equitable to build the marketplace to put costs on in this particular instance? So, if you look at it from that aspect, I do have two ways of looking at it. So
I'm just having trouble following the argument that a change in rental rate would change the the responsibility for paying of these infrastructure costs?
Well,
See the connection.
if I'm looking at it today and we're seeing a $15, $12, $14, $13 market rents that were put on, and I'm just talking this cycle, but the last couple cycles leading up to this. If market's been around $18 and north of $18, and if you were to have this site built out the way it would be in the marketplace, you'd have to get at least $18 and north of that from an owner, as an owner. When you see market put in between $13 and $15, that's a heavy offset. So if you're going to be putting in it at the higher market rate, I guess that can open the door to the questions on that. Should the cost be put back in place? But the rental rate is already applied, is lower than what market would be to offset that.
So you're discussing market then. Now I follow you. But the theory is not changed behind the decision, correct?
There's only been one decision. This is the sole decision that this comes from. And when we go back to the municipal board, we'll be challenging that, obviously. So it also comes to the equitability factor and how you treat property. So that's another issue there.
So just again, further to your comparison there, and I forgive me for taking some time on this, but it holds true for every property in the park, and it is an important point. You had made the comparison between, is it equitable between say a power center location and these subject properties? What would the ownership structure of a power center be?
Well, they're not condominiums. They're condominium, but there's common ownership through all of this, except for one, I believe.
Okay, and would they be responsible for road repair on, say, Regent or Portage Avenue or Keniston, or the light standards, or the drainage issues, etc.? In those circumstances,
they would be responsible for items that are on their physical property.
On the property itself.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I did have one further question here. Just bear with me for just a moment. Those are all of my questions for the moment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. McFadden, do you have any questions for Mr. Poole?
I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Ms. Knight, do you have any questions for Mr. Poole?
I do not have any questions at this time. Thank you.
And I do not have any questions either. So, Mr. Smith, please proceed with your presentation when you're ready.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. So the first property that we're dealing with is Unit 10, 3965 Portage Avenue. All the properties that we're dealing with here today are automobile dealerships in the Point West Auto Park. As we were just discussing it, I will bring out the ownership issue at this point. The subject property, as well as the other properties within the Point West Auto Park, are condominiumized. They're part of a condominium, commercial condominium structure. Each unit is its own condominium unit as part of the condominium corporation. And the original deal with the city of Winnipeg for the development of the subject property, and I'm skipping ahead somewhat here, so I may cover it briefly twice, but the development agreement for the subject property was such that the city was allowing the development to proceed with the express and contracted and bylawed understanding that the condominium corporation itself was responsible for all infrastructure maintenance and replacement in the auto park. So that's not the on-site development of each condominium. So it's not the parking lot of the auto dealer. It's not their light standards on the lot itself. It's the roadway itself. It's the light standards for the area. It's the drainage for the area and all the other infrastructure components that one has in a typical commercial setting. So this is an important point, as it will come up on each of them. If you were to develop a property on Portage Avenue, say, it doesn't really matter, any main commercial stretch, Keniston, etc., fronting on Portage Avenue, your responsibility ends at the city of Winnipeg property line, essentially. Beyond that, you have no direct responsibility for maintaining the central boulevard on the roadway, repaving Portage Avenue, light standards, sewer systems, etc. None of that. So if you were to build in that location, all of that is taken care of for you. If you are in the Point West Auto Park, the development agreement is such that you're expressly responsible for the roadway, both and all of the other infrastructure components, both on an annual basis. So any repair that has to be done, any annual maintenance that has to be done. But further than that, you're also responsible for the eventual replacement of those components as they break down. So completely redoing of the roadway and all of the other components. So there's actually two aspects to the additional infrastructure component. The annual portion, which is deducted prior to arriving at your net operating income, and then a capital portion where we develop the net present value of those infrastructure components and bring them back to the valuation date. So apples to apples, as Mr. Pohl was indicating, it's inequitable to not apply these additional costs that you bear in this particular ownership structure in this particular location, as they're mandated by the city of Winnipeg in the development agreement that they did with the developer of the park. So again, they can't hand those back to the city after developing them or anything of that nature. They are required to pay for all the upkeep and maintenance and replacement. So as we were talking about it, I thought I'd cover that up front. We'll get into that a little bit later, but let's jump forward and start looking at these properties. So as Mr. Pohl indicated, we don't find arm's length lease transactions on the marketplace for these properties, as they are nearly exclusively owner occupied in the marketplace. So you can't go to the market and find fair market rents and or fair market capitalization rates. If they traded, they simply don't exist. I am going to, as this is a significant issue, and I think Mr. Pohl has addressed it in one of his comparables here somewhere. Coffee shops. Well, I'll just jump and I'm looking at Mr. Pohl's page number 12 now at this point, as this is an issue that will come up. So the way the automobile dealership industry works is that the auto manufacturers control how many of their locations they have in a market. So your Fords, your Hyundais, etc., have a certain number of automobile dealerships that they're willing to accept in a particular marketplace. Otherwise, they cannibalize each other and their overall profit goes down. So in order to enter a market that's fully built out, a new market participant essentially has to buy somebody else out. In order to do that, it's complicated because the operator, so the dealership themselves, they do not have the ability to sell their representation of the brand. So I can't sell you Hyundai's representation on Regent or on Portage Avenue or anything of that nature. I don't have that right in my contract with the brand. So there's no equity there for them in selling the brand rights. They don't possess them. That's just how it works. So in order to capitalize on that value that's clearly there, that is built into the transactions of their real estate. So Jim Pattison, who's not present in the Winnipeg market, comes to Winnipeg and wants to enter the market, and he needs to do that by buying dealerships, which you can't do. So what he does is he enters into the agreements that you see at 2537 Pembina and 1496 Regent. So he strikes an above market rental rate for a period of 5 years. So the property owner reaps the benefit of a significant over market rental rate in his pocket, and sets at the beginning of the contract for the rent, they set a buyout price at a significantly inflated value above the real estate value, based on the purchase essentially of that brand right that can't be sold. So the owner of the property has no incentive to simply sell the real estate as is without capitalizing on the brand equity that they have, because they can't then go and start another one with that same brand. So they have to capitalize in the sale of the property. And that's what these sale prices indicate across the board here, both numbers 1 and number 6, as well as the ones in between. So there is not a straight one-to-one comparison. These are not true transactions of strictly the real estate. So just wanted to make that clear. I will set that aside for now, and we can move into my presentation. So just a bit of background on the subject property, Unit 10, 3965. So this is the Volvo location at Point West. It's the first property as you come in. It also has a Tim Hortons on site, which we are not disputing in value today. The 2023 assessment for the subject property is set at $4,943,000. This is over $1.4 million increase from the 2020 assessment, or a 40.1% lift in assessed value as assigned by the City of Winnipeg. This is not supportable. We don't see this in any market segment. And we'll get into the valuation in order to demonstrate that. You can also see the prior history of appeals of the subject property there. We have one outstanding from 2018, which is sitting at the municipal board. Moving down my chart, you can see that this was one of the earlier properties developed in 2002. It sits on an overall 3.9 acres. This one is complicated because the Tim Hortons occupies a certain amount of the land, so we're not entirely able to determine a land to plan area ratio. Suffice it to say, it's under what is ideal for modern commercial vehicle dealerships, which is typically 8:1 and or above, in order to have the land area available to display product, to provide parking for repair clients. circulation on site, staff parking, etc. We'll get into that in the other properties. The subject property build out is described at the bottom there. We have an overall leasable area of 17,111 square feet. Part of that being a mezzanine office area for the subject property. So let's move forward into the property itself. It has had various renovations over time. Again, I'll cover this once. The automotive brands have significant sway in the buildings that their product is marketed out of. They have the ability to essentially demand that the dealerships meet their current branding finishes or structural requirements, etc. So on a not infrequent basis, roughly 5 to 7 years, they demand that the individual dealerships renovate according to what their new branding is. So you can see some of that in Volvo here with the Scandinavian look that they've kind of done in recent time. That's also present in all the other dealerships. My discussions with Birchwood, so largest auto dealer group in Winnipeg, are such that this really does nothing to boost sales of the product. They don't see any increase in sales of autos after renovation. It simply meets the brand requirements of the individual automotive brands themselves. So it may look different, but it doesn't drive additional value for the subject property. So let's quickly go through these. Page number 4, exteriors, interiors on page 5, as well as page 6, and you can see the automotive repair area at the bottom of page 6, all relatively standard. The improvements are discussed on page 7, as well as onto page 8. I'm not going to get into those. Happy to answer questions if you have them on any particular property. And we can move down to the infrastructure component. So I've discussed this at length. But as shown on the bottom of page number 8 and onto page 9, the actual typical public infrastructure, so roadway, lighting, drainage in the Point West Auto Park is the responsibility of the condominium corp. So each individual condominium has to contribute towards annual and replacement costs. The page number 9 identifies this more clearly. Property zone C3, there's an original zoning agreement for the auto park development indicating there are ongoing use restrictions within the development. Additionally, condo declaration for the condo corp as registered on title restricts use of the properties to automotive sales and repair, as shown in the following excerpt. And so you're free to read the excerpt there itself, other than essentially it says only for sale, leasing, rental, storage, repair of automobiles, essentially. So that is the restriction in the auto park. So the city, and I know this is only one aspect of their case, but they present big box rental comparables as your comparables for all of these auto dealerships in the Point West Auto Park. None of those uses would be allowed in any of the structures on site in the Point West Auto Park, according to the specific zoning limitations for the auto park here. So you could not take even if Staples or Boot Claire or whoever wanted to locate in Point West, which they don't, you couldn't do it. So you can't transfer one of those uses into the auto park. So there is no market for retail big box in this particular development. Let's move forward. The site description is shown on page number 10. And you can see the Tim Hortons fronting on Portage Avenue, essentially, although the entrance is off of the side road. And yeah, the overall site shown there. Let's move forward to the location. So in commercial real estate, and this is a quasi retail type of property. It's a bit of a blend, certainly. Location is critical, as it is in all real estate. Let's look at where the subject properties are. They're located west of the perimeter highway. On the north side, they're essentially removed from any supportive retail development in the location that they're in. You have the racetrack there. I believe the Red River X has a development there. There's a bit of industrial development further to the west, and there's vacant land in between, and generally along the majority of the highway there. There's some older developments and some pockets of developments or hotels that are on the south side, but there's no supportive retail in this general vicinity. That's all within the city. So the development itself is standalone, essentially. So there is no reason to go here other than to go shopping for cars. Let's move forward beyond that into my page number 13 and look at the automotive industry itself. So we're looking at automotive dealership structures here, automotive realty. What's happening in the industry? So there's a significant amount of change that's happening. A lot of uncertainty and revision. Obviously, we're looking at a big shift to online shopping, particularly accelerated by the COVID pandemic, where people were not able to go out and shop. People did all of their shopping online. So if we look at my page numbers 13 here, this is summarized a bit. Online shopping has given consumers easier access to relevant info for comparison shopping, driving more competition for the consumer and lowering price margins as consumers shop around more consistently. Online shopping has also led to automotive brands choosing to consolidate dealerships into distribution centers. So what this increased online presence has meant is that there's less need for individual dealerships for each brand, so less need for the bricks and mortar. So what they're doing is creating larger dealerships, kind of distribution centers, and reducing the overall number of dealerships per brand in each marketplace. Additionally, we have Amazon that's starting to enter the market. They've done so in Europe and they're entering North America. This always drives lower margins and lower sales, lower profits, obviously less valuable real estate. And we have a historical document going back a few years that's essentially saying we're looking at a stable marketplace in Winnipeg. Moving forward, COVID pandemic itself, obviously the public health restrictions did have an impact, whether the person that filled out the income and expense form or not noted it. The dealerships did close at some point for a period early on. They essentially ended up laying off a significant amount of their staff for each dealership, as there was no work for them to do. People were not driving, people were not shopping, and they were only allowed to have a certain number of people in the building at a time under very restricted circumstances. So obviously significant impact on the auto dealership industry as well. Beyond that impact, there was obvious impacts to the supply chain for all industries, this one in particular as well. So all of those things being said, it's not driving strong values for auto dealerships in our marketplace. So let's move forward. Page 14, methodology for valuing these these automobile dealerships. As Mr. Pohl had indicated, we don't have true comparable rents on the marketplace or transactions to compare them to. So you need to develop a model that accurately reflects what these properties would A, rent for, and then how you would capitalize that value on the marketplace. So the text for this is on page number 14. We look at my top of my page 14, stated in the Appraisal Journal article of October 1998, peculiarities of appraising auto dealership facilities. Auto dealerships are considered special use or special purpose properties, which means that they cannot typically be assigned other uses. Auto dealership facilities are typically constructed for a specific use and not readily adaptable to other uses. So they're essentially saying you're not, you have a structure that's specific enough that you're not going to put another retail use in these buildings because of the special nature of them. So what is that special nature? Well, you're looking at portion of the property, generally at the rear, that is the automotive repair and or collision center, where the repair of vehicles and servicing of them is done. More industrial in nature, certainly more heavier industrial or heavier automotive use. And then at the front of the property, you typically have a kind of showroom, retail / office development where the cars are displayed. The public comes in where the offices for the staff are as well. So that is the structure that we are looking at. And that is how we need to develop the model based on those two different components of the property itself. What I will point out at this time is that the big box stores, as you walk into a Home Depot or a Winners or anything of that nature, you have your selling floor, which is roughly 80 to 90% of the building, where all of the stock is on the selling floor itself. And then you have a very minor component of the building that is for storage and shipping of product as it comes in and out. So the way big boxes are designed is that the majority of product is out and available for sale on in the buildings themselves to start with. So you have more transactable square footage. And that's not at all how dealerships are built. Obviously, you walk in, you've got your display space for autos, but then you have the office, you have mezzanine office in many cases, and then you have repair at the back of the building. So we're not looking at big box structures at all. They simply don't operate in the same manner, and they're not built in the same manner. So let's look quickly at again at my page 14. I'll run you through the evolving use of automobile dealerships. Typical stages for an auto dealership are to operate as a branded new auto dealership. So your Hondas, your Fords, your Mazdas. Following that, when that particular use has passed, when it's no longer useful for that original purpose, it generally evolves into a secondary use as a used auto dealership when the properties become obsolete for that branded auto dealership. That's your second use. And then typically they move down the chain once that's no longer supportable. Your third stage is essentially they end up being demolished and redeveloped at that point. As you can see with the Patterson Subaru site at 2597 Pembina Highway. The property was used as first line dealership, and then they developed a new dealership in southwest Winnipeg, adjacent to the other auto dealers. And when they could not lease the property at an economic rent, they demolished it, and it is now a development site. All of this speaks to vacancy. So I have some examples of this. 3021 Pembina Highway, former Winnipeg Honda property, towards the end of Pembina Highway, inside the perimeter, vacant for many years when the dealership moved to Waverly Auto Mall. No interim tenancies, subsequently demolished. It's a multifamily development site now. 1310 Regent Avenue, originally a branded Ford dealership, evolved into used autos, and it's now been demolished with the land being repurposed into being built into another dealership as the property owners had contiguous land. Number 3, McNaught Pontiac Cadillac, Buick Cadillac on Portage Avenue. First run dealership beginning in 75, moved to Waverly Auto Mall in 2003, used auto dealer after that through 2012. And it was for sale from 2011 onwards as a redevelopment site. There was no takers for the property as it was, so it's since been demolished and is being redeveloped. It was vacant for a very extended period of time. 2537 Pembina, we've covered. That's Jim Pattison. There was no use for the building, and they moved out of the property almost as soon as their lease expired to a location at the Waverly Auto Mall that they were developing. There was no economic viability of the building as a tenanted place. They could not get tenants, so it has subsequently been demolished and is now a multifamily development site. Number 5, this is the Saturn dealership at Point West. Saturn went bankrupt in 2000, developed in 2000. Saturn went bankrupt, and that brand was gone. They were unable to put another brand on the property as the building was too small, functionally obsolete. So they've had interim uses there since that time. It was a truck center for a while, and now it's is Birchwood Credit, where they sell used autos. Finally, 3081 Portage Avenue, same thing. It was originally a branded dealership. Became a string of used auto dealerships with significant vacancy over time. So all of that speaks to the life cycle of these properties and the utility for any other use. Page number 15. What I've given you here is just a kind of visual reference comparing one of the city's comparables, this being the Michaels located at 840 St. James Street, in relation to an automotive dealer. So if you look at the bottom, well, both photos, but the bottom photo, you can see where 840 St. James is indicated towards the top of the photo. Besides Save On Foods, you have a very small receiving door on the south side of that property with limited backroom space, with the majority of that property being selling floor. So not at all the same thing as an automotive dealership. So that essentially covers off the city's discussion of what rents would you achieve for properties such as this with big box retail uses. You wouldn't get them. And they wouldn't happen for various reasons. They can't use the structure. The location is wrong for all of them, and the brands themselves would never move there. Big box brands stay with big box brands in big box locations because of the agglomeration issue. It drives increased traffic flow for all of them, and obviously increased rental rates and property value for the owners of those properties. Let's move into the valuation itself. So how do we effectively value these when there's no straight comparables? Well, what we have done, and I believe this is probably the best model for doing it, is look at the property in two components. You have an automotive repair and service area that forms generally in the neighborhood of 65% of the property. And then you have the showroom, retail / office area at the front of the property. So what would be appropriate rental rates for each of these components? We've broken it down in that way in our valuation beginning on page 17. You can see the comparable rents that we provide here. The first page being automotive. If you run through these, obviously they vary in location in the city, age of structure, size, etc. And but typically we're trying to get rental rates from as close to the valuation date as possible. I will draw your attention to a few. Comparable number 9, 231 Oak Point Highway. This is obviously a little further out on Oak Point. It's not on Portage Avenue or Pembina, but this was a former Harley Davidson first line dealership. It is now being leased as of 2017 as a used car dealer, Match Auto Market. Just 14,500 square feet, 2017 lease at $7 a square foot. Now, that's not necessarily a prime location, so it might be a little under what you achieve in other areas, but that's an actual arm's length lease. 960 Pembina, auto service, 2018 lease at $12.75 a square foot. This is the Fountain Tire at 960 Pembina. So national branding, $12.75 as of 2018. Another one I will draw your attention to, and I think this one is certainly useful. If you look at number 20, that's on page number 18. This is not AutoCorp. We're looking at 27,603 square feet here. Not Auto sells premium used autos, and that is their business model. They have a 2018 lease at 1322 Waverly at $6.85 a square foot. Now, if you look at page number 18, you can see this is located on the southeast corner of McGilvery and Waverly. Very prime spot. The building itself has been renovated for them. You can see the showroom area at the front, at the bottom of page 18, with the repair at the back. They're paying $6.85 as of 2018 at that site for it's not a first run dealership, but it's certainly a premier auto sales dealership in an excellent location in Southwest Winnipeg. The remainder of our comps, obviously happy to answer questions on them. They're generally repair centers of various kinds, including Fountain national brands such as Fountain Tire. And we're generally looking at rental rates in the range of $9 up to $12 or slightly over for the majority of these properties. So that's the automotive side. Let's move forward to the showroom retail. So how do you effectively determine rental rates for the front of these properties? What we've done is look at properties that are showroom retail in very similar locations to not necessarily, it's not that they're close in proximity to the subject property here, but they're very well located on main thoroughfares in proximity to supportive retail, but not part of supportive retail. So let's run through these quickly. I've also provided you with maps of each of them on the following pages, so you can identify what we're looking at. A lot of these are centered in Southwest Winnipeg, so I'll head there to start with. First one, Stone Angel Brewing, just off of Pembina Highway, $10 a square foot in 2017 for 9,000 square feet. Our properties on Lorimer there, 960 Lorimer. This is located west of or rather east of the IKEA interchange, just off of Sterling Lion. And we're looking at showroom retail type of uses here. So we have a climbing gym, spin cycle studio, a true hockey outlet, as well as a tile store in 2 through 5, all of them in the same property. Sizes ranging between 3 and 15,000 square feet. And our leases there are shown in the 12 and a quarter up to 14.25, which included significant free rent, most of them in the 12 to 13 range. The photos for that are shown on page number 20. You can see the type of property that we're looking at, as well as the location. Clearly good showroom type retail. Let's move on to, I have one that Mr. Pohl will object to slightly because it's ever so slightly outside of the city boundaries on Fort White Way. These are comps number 8, 9, and 16. We have newly built property in 2012, 2013 leases between $11 and $12 a square foot there. So we're looking at occupancies such as Sky Zone in that location. Another one on Lorimer, Dynasty Bathroom. So very clearly a showroom retail, $12.50 a square foot in 2016. Two that I think are an excellent indicator, 1290 Kenaston. These are shown on my page number 23. This is located to the north of the power center at Kenaston and McGilvery. So you have all of your Home Depots and IKEAs and Costco's, Canadian Tires, etc. in that retail node to the south of this. You move north rather along Kenaston, cross the rail tracks, and then you come to the strip where there's been a number of automotive dealers developed here. Mercedes, there's 2 Birchwood properties right there, and this is immediately adjacent to them. So comps number 11 and 12, 1290 Kenaston. 2015 renovation of this former industrial property, very nice renovation. We have leases of 10 and 15,000 square feet, those being TransCanada Brewing and Lux Barbecue. 2016 leases at $12 and $12.50 a square foot. Moving down, 980 Lorimer, again, excellent comp, $12 a square foot, 2018. And finally, comparable number 17, Nature Park Way. This is on the west side of Kenaston, across from 1290 Kenaston. And this is showroom retail as well. 2017 lease for 15,000 square feet, $12 a square foot, essentially $11.95. So our ranges are $6.50 to $13 for automotive repair collision, and essentially $6 to, well, generally $12 to $12.50 for showroom retail. We've assigned a rental rate of an overall rental rate for the property of $12.50 a square foot, based on this review of the marketplace. Again, we have considerably under that on the repair and collision side, service side, and $12.50 is generally where we're seeing these rents for comparable showroom retail. So we're by no means underestimating what the rent should be at $12.50. Let's move forward into the expense side. Vacancy, I've already discussed this a bit. We've gone through what the stages of these properties are. They go from branded to used autos to development sites where the structure is torn down. So essentially very little value in the structure as there's no other uses for them. Vacancy chart is there for you for overall retail vacancy. We don't believe that the 2% vacancy adequately covers what vacancy should be for this particular property category. But in our valuation, we are going to defer to the 2% that the city has used, despite it being a minimal amount, and address that additional factor in the selection of the capitalization rate for the properties. Let's move forward from there. The expense allowance, I will spare everybody that discussion. We've had it roughly 30 times this season. I think you all know my feelings on that. We're at 7%, the city's at 3%. I'll answer any questions you have. We've also deferred to the $6 square foot shortfall that the city has, as shown on page 28. Moving on, getting back to the non-recoverable infrastructure expenses, I've discussed this at length. There's two components to it, the annual maintenance and then the replacement of those components over time as they wear out and need replacing. So unfortunately, we don't have modern costs for these particular issues. Nor has the city requested these expenses from the property owners. There is no section of the income expense form that particularly requests non-recoverable infrastructure costs, and it hasn't been directly asked of them either. So what we've done, there was an original study done by the condominium corp on behalf of each unit. And what we have done is break out the annual expenses as well as the net present value of the future replacement expenses according to the proportional share of the condominium corp that each unit has. So the subject property is 10.149% of the overall corp. We assign 10.149% of the annual costs as well as the future replacement costs in our valuation. This is backed up by the municipal board decision noted at the bottom of page 28 and included in the city's brief. To this point of equity, and I think this is a very important point. I've had discussions with the property owner at 1301 Keniston, this being a very significant property developer in the city. 1301 Keniston is across from the new Birchwood dealerships on Keniston. We're looking at, I have an example of one here on the bottom of my page 22. In discussions with them and from prior knowledge, that particular development also is subject to the situation where they are responsible for their infrastructure costs, both annually and on a replacement basis because of a development agreement that they struck with the city when they did that development. The city recognizes those costs in the assessment for those properties and include them in their valuation model. They don't include them for the Point West Auto Park anymore. Situation is exactly the same, and yet they're receiving the benefit, not the benefit. They are receiving accurate treatment in one circumstance, and it's been removed in another. That inequity should be addressed. Let's move on to capitalization rate. So again, there's no caps for these properties, so we need to look at the marketplace for transactions of similar types of properties and make adjustments. So what we've done on page 30 and 31 and onwards is give you indication of the marketplace. So page 30 covers industrial transactions. These are true cap rates based on in-place income and expense. And you can see that we're looking at sales in the relevant time frame, and they're in that 6.5 to 7.8% overall, with the majority of them in 7 to 7.5%. So those are good indicators of industrial demand or industrial cap rates in our marketplace. We don't have obviously sales of repair places to look at with true cap rates. Moving on to the retail side. 3 excellent comps on page 31, 1411 Henderson, which you can see the photo of on 31, 130 Osborne, 435 Stradbrook, just underneath that, and following that 1800 Corridor. So very well located strip centers. 1411 Henderson trading in 2021 at an 8.9% cap rate. Some national covenants there, Dollarama, Quiznos, etc. Excellent parking, good visibility on Henderson. 130 Osborne, 435 Stradbrook, 7.5% cap in 2018. Significant asset. It is at the corner of Stradbrook and Osborne. Excellent location. Finally, 1800 Corridor. This is a newly developed strip mall towards Tuxedo on Corridor, still in the River Heights area. 2019 transaction at 7%. This is kind of boutique retail, but an excellent development, as you can see. So our comps for retail are showing us 7, 7.5, 8.9%. Following that, we have the broker discussion itself regarding their capitalization rate ranges from 2021. Colors and CB Richard Ellis indicating industrial investment grade assets between 6 and 6.75 and 6 and 7.25%. And for investment grade retail strip center assets, they're indicating 6 to 6.75 and 5.75 to 7.5% for that particular asset class, that being retail strip center assets. So what do we have here? We have none of those things. We have a property, as I described. It's got quasi showroom retail office with repair at the rear. None of the properties today are located in power centers. They're not located in proximity to other supportive retail or commercial, essentially isolated on the west side of the perimeter highway there. In addition to that, you've got no other uses for these properties essentially in the marketplace. So they are going to trade at a premium if theoretically they were going to be on the market. So taking into account the special use nature of automotive dealerships, the location, and the investment potential of the property, we've used cap rate of 8% in all of our valuations here today. 2016 board revision orders used 8.5% based on my valuation. In addition, 2020 border revision also used 8% in the Point West decisions as well. So all of this is summarized on page 33. So you've got our methodology. I think it's the best approach to valuing those in the absence of true rental comparables or transactions. Our valuation is summarized in adjacent to City of Winnipeg's 2023 and 2020 valuations. And you can see where we have included the infrastructure costs. So in our summary, if you go down the chart on page 33, we have the annual infrastructure costs at just over $9,000. And we have the future infrastructure cost deduction of $36,000+ in our analysis. This gives us our final market value of $2,261,000. Now, these costs have certainly not gone down since the time that study is done. we're underestimating that aspect of valuation. It would be more than that at this point. We look at the city of Winnipeg, you can see that the capitalization rate that's been used for these properties was reduced from a 2020 value of 7.15% by nearly a full point to 6.25%. Certainly, we've seen no change in the marketplace to justify that change. So our valuation for the subject property is $2,261,000. Adding on the Tim Hortons gives you a final market value of $3,302,000. If you look at the addenda materials, there's the I&E. Page A4, we include a decision done on a new build Birchwood dealership just off of Kenaston, which was based on, the decision was based on my net operating income and a 7.5% cap rate, brand new construction for the last cycle, that being at 200 Lawson. And similarly, from earlier this year, we have another property at 1310 Regent, also based on our evidence with a slightly changed vacancy rate. So those are new build properties based on our valuation. If you look at the valuation, you can see that the rental rates of $12.50 a square foot for those properties, as included in the addenda materials. The remainder of the addenda, there's a couple of articles that back up the discussion with regard to the changes in the automotive dealership industry, as well as the impacts of COVID on automotive dealers at the very back of the brief. Thank you for your patience, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And I will not cover any of that material twice.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Pohl, do you have any questions for Mr. Smith? Sorry, you're on mute, Jeremy. You're on mute.
All right.
There
Sorry
we
about
go.
that.
That's okay.
So if we can turn to your page 77, it's in your addenda. We can agree from page 77 downwards that these articles are post-referenced by quite a bit.
If I could ask you to point out what the A number is, because I don't have them.
Page 77 on your brief.
Yeah, I don't have a 77. If you get into the addenda.
Oh, sorry. Then I guess you could say it would start on your layoffs at Manitoba's largest automotive group, but dealers say open during the corona pandemic. So that would be.
So we're looking at A-42.
I'm just sorry. Yeah, A42.
Okay, so if you look at the date of that, it's March 28th, 2020.
Oh, my apologize. I was looking up at the top. It was looked like it was post-reference up there. Okay, so then these would all be published before the April 1st, 2021 deadline, or I should say cutoff point. I was sorry. My apologies. I don't know why I'm looking at they're dated differently on the top. Is that just the printing date?
It's probably the date they were printed on.
Okay. Fair enough. All right. Getting to the corona COVID issue, you indicated it impacted it greatly. Yet on their I&Es, they indicated minor impact.
Yes, as I'd indicated, I mean, I don't know why they indicated that unless they're thinking of, their specific costs. I mean, the impact was essentially they were shut down. They opened up on a limited basis. They had to lay off a significant amount of staff, as noted in the article, and they were only allowed to take in a certain number of people into the showroom for that extended period of time.
And I agree. I mean, I'm sure that's exactly how it played out. But you would be speaking of the impact on the going concern, the actual business. But from a real estate perspective, from the ownership group, if they were to be a tenant, there would be very little impact, as these properties, if they were to be a tenant, would just simply be paying their rent.
Well, so I guess my answer to that would be if there were a tenant in place, it would be an automotive tenant, and the impact on them would be exactly the same. So their revenues would plummet as a tenant.
But your impact is on the operation of the business itself, not the physical real estate performance in that aspect.
Well, so the impact there, then, if you were a tenant and you had to lay off half of your staff and your revenues dropped to less than half, certainly, you may not be able to continue to operate there. So there could be vacancy issues, rent deferrals, all of the things that we see in retail.
But the nature of it is that because they are all owner-occupied, that actual impact is not known because it's not other than a business actually closing, right?
It's not nothing because, and I understand your question, I do, but the impact. We're looking at all of these properties today on an income valuation model. So it doesn't matter whether it's owner occupied or not, they're being viewed as investment properties. And yes, Birchwood may be able to weather the storm, but can everybody do that? It's not a business situation thing. It's the impact on survivability in that time frame.
Okay, getting on to your comparables on page 17 and on page 19, I guess straddling 18 and 19.
Yeah.
If we speak with in terms of COVID impact, did any one of these tenancies effectively end? Meaning on page 17, 18, or on page 19?
I'm afraid I don't have an answer for that question. If any of them went out of business during that time frame.
So my getting even on your comparables differ from ours. None of these have went dark.
Well, I can't speak to whether they did or whether they didn't. I don't know the answer.
Okay. Page 17 to 18. If you look at the age of these buildings, they are considerably older than the stock property that you're presenting today.
17 and 18. Yes, for the most part, there's a lot in the 70s. Yes.
Okay, so the majority of them hover around. If you did the analysis, would be you'd be looking, most of them be like a $10 and under rent. There's only 1, 2, 3, 4 that are above, 5 that are above that.
Above $10?
Yeah, above $10. Yeah, but
okay, I'm afraid I didn't count them. 1, 2,
so
3,
13, 12, 39. Yeah, you got a handful. Majority of them are below. Yeah.
Majority of them are below. I guess my comment there would be location is very important in these things as well. So majority of them are on major thoroughfares. I know, say 140 Warman doesn't sound like it's a major thoroughfare, but it fronts on Lajmoje, and it's a Fountain Tire location. We're looking at Pembina Highway, Osborne, Portage Avenue for St. Anne's for a lot of these.
Just one quick other question on page 18. 1322 Waverly, which is the not automotive group used car sales dealership, and they do sell higher end used cars, obviously. We see that it is a $6.85 rent, correct?
Yes.
Did you have any exploration to the terms of the lease? Meaning this is, they converted it over use. Did McNaught pay anything to convert the building over on their end? Or was this the owner who bear the cost?
I don't have the detail as to whether the tenant sunk money into it or not. But the lease terms that were available to the public were such that it was a 2018 lease at that rate. So they may have put some of their money into the building.
Okay. On your page 19, your showroom retail areas, would you consider 960 Lorimer, basically all of the Lorimer properties, and I've been in them, most of them anyways, especially the climbing one. That one's fun. We should go that way.
Yeah.
But would you not consider that this be, again, back inside of off a major thoroughfare and hidden behind another, I believe it's the medical center unit, 5-story building, spans quite a large amount of area. Would you not consider this to be not in a high traffic flow area?
Well, if we look at the map on my page number 20, which shows you a picture of the frontage of these units as well as the location. So bottom of page 20 is the map, and you can see the interchange with IKEA on the southwest corner. So if you're heading east on Sterling Lion, these properties are located in very close proximity to both Seasons of Tuxedo as well as IKEA. And I mean, there's a reason that, a high-end Dynasty bathroom location is locating in this particular development, in this particular location. I will grant you there is a surgical center on the corner there, but you're heading eastbound, you see all of this as you drive that direction.
Yeah, my point is when you go down Kinnison Boulevard, that's where the underpass goes down. And then when you actually look out, you can't see any of that. They have the gravel park that's in front of it. When you drive down Western or Sterling Lions Way, you see the surgery center, which effectively blocks the rest of the development. You have to turn in and then kind of go a little bit off to the side to actually see it.
You do. So as you're headed eastbound, you would see it on the way towards it. The surgical center is there on the corner, I grant you, but you will see it in advance of that. I get the point of the Kenniston dropping.
But you wouldn't see any signage from Sterling Way. And realistically, the only thing you would see is if you're going down Wilkes, you might see the banners that are up on the actual building. There'd be no actual advertising or indication of a high flow area coming to these tenancies. So I'll move on from that point. Other than your other comparables here as well, and I don't necessarily disagree with you bringing in your if we look here, the Sky Zone comparables, but realistically, again, this is in a non-high traffic flow area, and it's more of an industrial suited building. Correct?
That is your take on the property, I guess.
They don't sell anything. I mean, I've been in it, you jump around, at least you did at one point before closed. But it's literally a trampoline park in an industrial setting.
It is, yes. It is a trampoline tenancy in that one particular unit, yes.
Okay, so on page 22, your other comparables, these are from industrial buildings, correct?
Which page are we looking at?
Page 22.
H Parkway, yes.
So again, non-retail. Page 23. I haven't been, sorry.
Just to cover that off, sorry, I believe the Dulux paint is one of those comparables, which is, yeah, it's one of the comps that we have there.
Yeah, and essentially from my understanding is they do have a bit of a show to sell, but realistically they produce paint in the back, and that's the majority of that footprint of that tenant.
They do produce paint in the back, but again, they do have the showroom in the front, so it's kind of an ideal comp in my mind. And it, again, fronts on Kenniston, excellent visibility.
Okay, so if we go to page 23.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in 290 Kenniston. I actually used to work there when it was the plastic factory. Rotomodeling is not a fun job. If you ever get a chance to do it, don't. Spend your day a different way. But this is essentially an industrial building with very little. It's a nice retrofit to what was there, but realistically, There's no windows, there's no showiness to it. They just brew beer there, and they have they have a place for retail to come up and actually purchase what they produce. Right. So it isn't.
So I would very much disagree with you there. So 1290 Keniston, my comps number 11 and 12. Yes, Trans-Canada Brewing is one. The other is Lux Barbecue, located immediately adjacent to that. Yes, it was an industrial building. It was entirely renovated in 2015 with this express idea in mind of getting higher end showroom retail type tenants. Trans-Canada Brewing, yes, they do brew the beer on site in a portion of their unit, but then they also have the restaurant component to it. So that is the build out of that. So each of I would disagree that that's an industrial building. Its intent is tenants exactly like we are showing here.
Okay, hold on. The primary use of the building, what the primary footprint of the building is non-industrial based? Or is it a 60-40 split, a 30-40 split the other way?
As far as all of the tenancies go?
Yeah. Like how much is actually an industrial plant production?
I'm afraid I don't have that break. I mean, the Trans-Canada does brew on site. Lux Barbecue is not making barbecues on site. I know that for sure. It is showroom retail. I do not remember each of the other tenancies, but they're of a similar nature. Yeah, I don't have their rent roll in front of me. I can't really comment.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so majority of that would be then your rental range does range from about $12 or so, $11 to about $13 is one exception at about $14. But generally for the property that's not in a high flow area, more industrial setting, you're getting on the fringe end of where we are as far as our rental range for $13, $14, and $15. Would that not be a good look at the way that it is, the way that it sits?
I think that we disagree on the value of the property on Lorimer, certainly, as well as the value of the other ones that we've just been looking at. These, frankly, the ones that are fronting on Keniston couldn't be better in terms of the comparables. They're adjacent to new built auto dealers with premium visibility, very high traffic flow, and their rents are basically right in line with what we're suggesting. And we're at the high end of the range.
Okay, so getting on to another, we both agree there's no sales that we have really to look at the marketplace. There's some historical sales. You mentioned before that they're not true sales. They incorporate a going concern component of it of somewhat. All those sales I've looked at went through property registry, that former land titles, I guess you would say. And they're all registered for those sales prices.
Mm-hmm.
Why would they pay those property owners who are obviously skillful? They're hiring tax agents to feel the properties. They don't want to pay them an appropriate amount of tax in their opinion. Why would they then pay the land title transfer taxes on prices that aren't, in your eyes, actual real estate?
Well, that's a minor component of their overall cost for the property, right? I've discussed the situation where you can't enter the market without effectively buying the ability to have that brand dealership from the existing operator. They're not motivated to sell it to you, so you have to pay them a premium on their real estate because they cannot sell you the right to represent Ford or Mazda or whoever, right? So the property sales, yes, they go through land titles, and yes, they pay their land transfer tax, but the value is inherently skewed by that situation that is controlled by the brands.
Okay. All right, a couple more questions on page 31, or sorry, on page 30 is your capitalization rates study.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to really get into page 30, as that you indicated was more industrial flavored, right?
It was industrial. It's more an indication of, structural. These are the back end of these buildings is more industrial in nature than it is showroom retail. Not that
Yeah.
that's use of them. That's why that's presented there.
Okay, so the property that we have in repeal today, the group of properties they're more retail oriented in my mind's eye and there's a few of the car dealerships that may be more industrial, industrial approach might be more appropriate to you, but you're not suggesting that we should use industrial rates or industrial parameters of any.
By no means not on their own, no. It's looking at the overall picture.
Okay, page 31. You indicated that these are good sales to look at for capitalization rate to apply to the subject property, to look in terms of in lieu of actual ones that have sold. Like obviously there isn't a market for this that we can actually drive from. But why would you not also look at the incomes generated and take that per square foot back to these subject properties that are here today? If you're saying these capitalization rates are okay, that includes the risk, that includes all factors to come to the cap rate, which is inclusive of rent. Why would you not explore the three properties and what they're actually renting for and see if it would fit?
Two points to that, I guess, are the City of Winnipeg valuation model for these properties is income based. We're not looking at a direct comparison valuation model, so we don't look at that. That's not what the methodology is. Second point, these are strictly retail strip centers, so you're looking at units of 1,500 to 3,000 square feet, paying probably significantly different rental rates for smaller space in arguably better locations. There's just not a direct comparison on the rent per square foot or necessarily the resultant sale price per square foot.
Okay, because I'm just kind of getting back to looking towards what the actual income. If I can explore it, that's how I would be explored it. But you also stated that earlier when you're cross-examining myself on regional power centers as far as capitalization rate, what's appropriate, you're now using retail strip, where our retail strip comes in between 6 and 6.8, and then 6.75, and then our evidence is also 5 3/4 to 7.5. So my look at it is like, where are you actually pooling? Like, it seems like you're going towards a retail strip in your analysis, but yet limiting us on the power center region.
No, we're not limiting you by any means. You can choose whatever methodology you wish, right? But what we're looking at is true investment sales in the marketplace. We don't have power center transactions with capitalization rates that we can look at, nor do we agree that these should be compared to power centers. What I had pointed out when we were discussing cap rate with you was that the high end of the cap rate range with the city, well, rather the 80th percentile is 7% with a low of 6.35, which you then have the subject properties following beneath.
Sorry, cut out.
I'm sorry, did you hear me?
No, you cut out. Sorry, I apologize.
Okay, my fault. So what I was saying is that we're not yet. What we're showing is the investment appetite for strip centers here. We're not saying that these are strip centers or that they would be identical to them. We're saying this is what astute investors are paying for a quality asset in our marketplace at the relevant time frame with decreased risk, because you have multiple tenancies here, better locations generally, etc. So the power center range that the city had was 6.35 to 7%, and 6 1/4 has been applied to these special use properties by the city.
Okay. So moving on to my last couple of questions here, you indicated that there's no retail perspective from this particular site for these group of properties. If we look at Unicity Mall, which is literally big box, almost the same footprint, it's only about 3/4 kilometer away. That's a fairly significant investment. It seems to work there. It's been there forever.
It's not close to the subject property.
Pardon me, it's 3 kilometers, it's less than a kilometer away.
Okay, we'll agree to disagree on the location and proximity to the subject. It's significantly different.
Oh, I'm looking at it right now, and there's a cloverleaf between you and them, and there's about 3 streets, 4 or 5 streets of residential development.
Okay, so let's look at my page number 12 then, and the location of the subject properties where the dot is. So you get in your car, get onto Portage Avenue and head east. You pass under the interchange. You pass a number of older hotels and motels, some small strip centers, etc. And then on the north side of the road, you eventually come to Unicity. So it may be a kilometer away. I haven't taken the measurement. It's not supportive retail adjacent to the subject property.
Okay, well, I'll agree to disagree with you there. That's pretty close proximity, in my opinion. But getting back to the equitability of the condominium development versus if it was 100% owner occupied and there was no condominium, it was just one rule number. Those costs to bear would be the same as if either situation, would they not?
No.
No. Let me rephrase that another way. The cost to put that roadway in, that cost to put everything in as it sits, is the same if there was one ownership in totality or if there were several ownership groups with some commonality. Regardless, the cost is the cost from one end to the other, right? For the overall property.
Yeah, the cost to develop it is not reliant on the ownership structure. That's not what I was
exactly. So if by way this condominium was dissolved and it was just one ownership group, right? By chance, would we then continue on with giving the infrastructure costs?
Yes, you would, because they built their roadway and they built their drainage, etc. So I can't be clearer about it. I guess if you built this dealership on Portage Avenue, you don't build Portage Avenue or put the lights on it or put the drainage underneath it, etc. That's there. You pay for that in your taxes, as these people pay for Portage Avenue in their taxes.
If I just keep along the same vein, if there was another power center retail node mall, they put in their infrastructure, it's all under one rule. They have to bear that cost. So what is the difference between the two? I'm just trying to ascertain now why there should be this infrastructure, this cost here at all.
Well, those are on site that you're talking about. So for the subject properties,
this is on site. If this reality is on site,
no, it's not on site. They had to build a roadway for them. If you look at the subject properties, yes, they have to maintain all of the lights on their site. Individually, that's not anything to do with the infrastructure components. They have to pave their lot, etc. You don't build your roadway and all the other non-standard infrastructure components in any normal location in the city. It's not the same as a power center. Again, they're responsible for what's on their site, not what's off of their site.
Okay. We agree to disagree, but I mean, this is part of discovery as well. So I'll ask you these questions. Last question. Through agency over the number of years, we've been asking for these costs. New agents haven't been able to prepare them or give them. They've simply been able to give the former study that was prepared, it was like 2 decades earlier. So through agency, you're effectively the owner today, and we're asking for them. We've been asking for them, have not provided them, whether they be in hearing or whether they be in on INE, but the ownership groups are well aware that were seeking these costs, and yet no agent has been able to produce them. Would that be correct?
Happy to answer that. So in the it's not that the costs don't exist by any means. What occurred with the original study is that it had to be done for I believe for this particular use in determining fair market value for assessment. So they went through that exercise at great expense, hired an engineering firm to run all of the numbers and come up with the appropriate costs, both annual and on an ongoing basis. So we're not hiding those costs. If we need to do another study at some point, which I know that we will going forward at the municipal board, that'll get done. We're not going to do an expensive, very expensive study on an annual basis because the city and I'm not aware of them being asked for these costs. Certainly, I haven't directly been asked for the infrastructure costs.
1 second here.
It's not a matter of avoiding it or not providing it. You have to go through an expensive exercise to.
But that's where I'm getting. You have an annual cost, which you have in your workup on your last page, and you mentioned it in other sections of your brief. If there was an annual cost that was always getting paid, that'd be a number that would be readily available to use and provide to us.
Well, we have what, 12, 13 different operating units on site. Each of them will need to collaborate and go through their expenses and provide that breakdown. I don't have it readily available.
That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Knight, do you have any questions for Mr. Smith?
Oh, I have a few. Sorry, I just need to kind of summarize this all up so that I can sort of understand it.
Sure.
So the real differences here is the difference in square foot for the rental rate, the infrastructure expenses. You agree on the vacancy and the shortfall. You disagree on the expenses of 7%, but the appellant believes that the cap rate needs to be adjusted to reflect the expenses and the vacancy rate, correct?
So
is that sort of roughly where we're at? And then I've got a few more things to go into that. In the appellants, he's showing strip malls and industrial cap rates. But on the city's page 9 of cap rates, where does the appellant feel that fits, or it doesn't, or that page 9 of the city doesn't fit at all?
Well, we're not placing it within the city's categories that they have there necessarily. I mean, they're
okay. So let's go back to some of your comparisons. You were giving us comparisons of strip malls.
Yes.
And he was giving you comparisons of power centers. So your comparisons are way off, both of you. So we're nowhere near where we need to be close, correct? Well,
the strip centers that I'm providing are indicators of capitalization rate trades.
Right.
The rental comparables that I provided are showroom retail rentals. So there's a difference there. They're not in the same category. If that helps.
It does a little bit. And then the dealership is really a condo corporation, correct? All those dealerships together.
Yes.
But as a view of a purchaser, and you don't know what kind of car you want to buy, wouldn't you rather go to something like that than to 5 different Dollaramas to find what you need? Or, you know what I'm saying? 5 different strip malls to find what you want. Wouldn't you rather go to something like that than to have to go to a whole bunch of different places?
Yeah, and I'm not disputing that.
Okay.
I mean, we built the auto mall for a reason, right? To something to each other. What we're saying is that it's not the same thing as a big box power center node such as Kenaston and McGilvery, where you have enormous supportive other commercial that drives huge amount of activity. This is one pocket of one type of commercial activity.
But would you agree that it draws more people because there's so many different options in that pocket?
I would agree that yes, you can go there and see quite a number of brands as you can at the Waverly area of auto dealers, but to that end, the shift is largely to people looking online and then going to try the car that they've selected.
Okay, that's one way to look at it. Okay, all right, thank you. That's I just kind of needed to get my head around it all straight. And thank you.
Okay, Ms. McFadden, you have any questions?
I have a couple. First, I'd like to address to the assessor, though, if I could. And it's just a simple question. So
Sure,
the ships are a condo corporation. You have this other industrial development on Kennethon that's a condo corporation. What's your explanation for treating them differently?
Is as far as how, like, which
On the infrastructure expenses, sorry.
I couldn't comment on the industrial, what Mr. Smith was speaking to. I don't work in that section. Typically, you would want to treat real estate the same. I have no idea if they're reporting their infrastructure costs on their INEs. They may be. There may be other aspects to those properties that may be valued differently. I couldn't comment on that.
Okay. All right. Following up on that as well. When you live in a condo corporation and it's a residential unit, you pay an annual fee based on exactly the type of things you're putting forward. Your proportional cost of the common areas, your proportional cost of the infrastructure that's in your particular, like
Right.
if it's a bare land condo, right? You're responsible for roads. These corporations don't do it that way. Do they must be paying these. So why wouldn't I guess I'm not understanding why the actual annual costs related to it are not available. Why you have to undergo a study to do it. I would think you would be paying it annually.
Well, the annual cost may be more readily available, other than there's the complication of there being so many units and operating entities, etc. But yes, they each get assigned, say, their share of the road maintenance, etc. Snow plowing on that road, not on their sites, obviously, and any other annual maintenance that has to happen to the infrastructure component. So they do pay their share of that.
In a condo corporation residential as well, you pay into a reserve fund for replacement and repair of the major infrastructure. Is that kind of thing not happening here?
That's a good question, which I don't have a ready answer for, I'm afraid. Certainly the condo corp probably plans for that in some way, but I don't know if they have a specific fund that they set things aside for every year as a planned method, right?
Just a comment.
Yeah, fair.
Would probably simplify this if that was actually being done and presented to the city.
Yeah.
Just a comment. Taking a look at the rental comps, if we looked at those, you don't need to look at them, it's a good question, but the car repair.
Right.
Would you not agree that a car repair and auto service connected to a dealership has a significant advantage over those other independent ones? They kind of got a locked-in market. They charge more money.
So I certainly take your point. So I don't fully agree with it, but I do understand what you're saying. What Point West faces, and this is a function of their location. They bought and developed their property where they did. It is what it is. It's not going to change is that they're very peripheral to the city, and they, not that other dealers don't have shuttle services, they do, but you're a half hour out from downtown by shuttle service there. So if you're going to take your car there and drive there a half hour, you wait for the van to take you back for 15, 20 minutes or however long it takes for the next one to be ready to go. And then you're back, another half hour to downtown if that's where you're working. So certainly the temptation is to use something closer. And as you say, in some cases, less expensive. I know I go to Point West. My father doesn't. He goes to the local Lube King on St. Mary's Road because it's 5 minutes from where he lives.
Okay, just my last question is taking a look at the 2020 assessment, which was reduced by Board of Assessments or by the Board of Revisions, right? Can you tell me whether that's been appealed to the municipal board?
Sorry, what page is that again?
Just at the very beginning of his brief.
Yeah, okay.
He's given a little historical stuff. The 2018 assessment has been appealed to the municipal board, but the 2020.
Oh, on that page, yeah, okay. Got it.
This particular one was not appealed. It was some of the other ones were not the same decision.
Okay.
For some reason, they were split last cycle. Anyway, I don't believe that particular one was appealed.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you. I just have one question on that same page. You've listed previous assessments, and I just wanted to know, do all of those assessments include the Tim Hortons?
Oh. Bear with me here. I don't want to give you a wrong answer, but if I have it, I do want to provide it. Jeremy, do you have the date of construction of the Tims?
Give me one moment.
I kind of ignored that in my
Give me one moment. I could. The Tims was built in 2008.
2008?
Yes.
Oh,
Okay, so that it would have been included in all of these. Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we are at 3:51 and we're only through one property. Does anyone need a break, or is everyone okay to push through? We can break if you need to.
I just need 5 minutes.
Okay, so if we could come back at about 3:50, 3:57, and then we'll re-adjourn. So we'll recess for a moment.
We are live.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to call the hearing back to order, and the next item on the agenda is Unit 45, 3965 Portage Avenue. Mr. Pohl, please proceed when you're ready.
Just to clarify, for the last appeal, I'm not sure if I heard it wrong, but I just wanted to inform the board that for the 2018 cycle, there was a pending appeal for this property at the municipal board with Mr. Smith. And then with the 2020 cycle, both the assessor and the agent appealed as well.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Bear with me here. My file's a little different. I expected to be in the hearing today, so I'm going on digital. So the item, bear with me here. I gotta put back up. So that item would be Unit 45, right?
Correct, yes.
Usually I have my papers in front of me, but now I'm looking digital. Okay. All right. So we don't need to go into the arguments. We've already heard all the arguments. We're just going to highlight the parameters at play. So for rule number 0756913505, Unit 45, 3965 Portage, the 2023 assessment is for $5,279,000. And I'll just go straight to the income sheet.
Okay.
So, which is on page 5 of all my briefs. For 25,025 square feet, we have $14.55, which produces a potential rent of, or PGI of $364,114. All of our standard parameters apply. We have 2% for we have 2% for vacancy. We have effective gross income of $356,832. We have an expense of expenses of non-recoverables of 3% and a shortfall of $6. Net operating income of produces $343,124. Capped gives us our value at $5,279,000. Sorry, $5,200,000. Yeah, $5,279,000. So, do we need to have any questions moving forward, or is this just what you want right into the role, and we move on to?
Well, you present what you feel you need necessary to present to make your case, and then we will run through questions just on each of your workups. Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay, so that's all I need to present.
Okay,
exact
thank you.
So.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smith. Any questions?
No questions.
Okay, Ms. McFadden, any questions?
No questions.
Ms. Knight, any questions?
No questions, nope.
And I have no questions. So, Mr. Smith, please proceed with your presentation.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair. So property we're looking at, Unit 45, 3965 Portage Avenue. This is the Mini and BMW dealership structure. Mini being on one side of the property, fronting on one roadway, and BMW being on the back side, fronting on the other side of the inner roadway. And if you look at my page 3, you can see some history. Original building for the Mini side built in 2000. The newer BMW building had built in 2015. You can also see the history of assessments. We do have both 18 and 20 under appeal at the municipal board. And property is just over 25,000 square feet in leasable area. And we have a land to plan area ratio of 4:1 here. So I didn't get to address this in the first one, so I will briefly here. For auto dealerships, modern auto dealerships, you're looking for a ratio of a minimum of 8:1. This is for the reasons of having display space and storage space for your product. So that being the cars on site, you need space to store the vehicles that are in for repair. You need circulation space. You need space for staff to park on, etc. So 8:1 is a minimum. Generally, all of these properties in the Point West Auto Park are under their land to plan area ratios are significantly under what they need to be. So they have to have off-site parking, which they have done, in order to have that area to store their vehicle stock. That's the one thing that I was going to point out that is different. Photos are there for you to see. There's not a great deal of difference between this. Obviously, the one side of the property is newer, built in 2015. I have done properties that are brand newly built just off of Kenaston and on Regent Avenue as well for the same ownership group at the same rental rate. With decisions supporting those. So I'll move forward to the valuation. Just to summarize, so this property is a little bit larger. There is economies of scale. If you have larger properties, obviously you're not going to pay necessarily the same rate as you are for a smaller property. So we've applied $12 a square foot to the subject for the rent. The rest of our parameters remain the same. We've applied the same cap rate of 8% to the subject property. And this gives us our final market value of $3,330,000. I would point out we have decisions on newly built properties based on our NOI at a 7.5 cap, as well as an 8 cap for the property on Keniston, or rather Regent Avenue, the Ford property. That is my presentation.
Thank you. Mr. Pohl, any questions?
Just a couple questions, because this was I missed in the first appeal. I just want to point out on the actual land area, the properties typically in these stocks of properties, they had additions put onto them, correct?
This particular one has an addition put onto it, yes.
So would that not be an indication that you have greater economic opportunity or on-site performance of that property? You need a bigger building. You're not just building a bigger building for no reason. You're doing it because you need that utility, the economic utility that building would provide to generate income on.
BMW mandated that they construct their own building for their own brand, and that is so that was what occurred here.
Right. Okay. So, and this common ownership throughout the property, they have ample parking on just off site, do they not?
They have parking off site, and I think that's the point. And I had this come up in an industrial property where it was significantly had very, very low land area, and the assessor suggested, well, there's parking nearby. Well, that's true, but it's not on site. They don't own that. It's not the property we're valuing. They have to get that land in order to park their vehicles.
So back that up one perspective, if you follow the money coming into the site, because you increase the size of the site physically for the building size, you can generate more opportunity there. Would that not rent out on? Would that not be an indication to be a greater performing property, that you're doing better business, that the manufacturers are indicating, do this, sell more, do this, repair more?
Again, it's a mandated situation driven by the brands that are able to pull their representation when they wish.
And then lastly, economies of scale. If you can generate greater amount of economic opportunity on site, would that not be better to have a bigger building? In case here, what I've noticed is the franchise players who own these sites, whether it be Waverly or here, they occupy the bigger sites. Here you have common ownership throughout. On the other sites at Waverly, you have the franchise occupying the bigger 56,000 square foot sites, not the fringe dealerships, the smaller dealerships. So would that not be an indication of the exact opposite of economies of scale? It actually is the performance of what sells on a property, how much you can sell, how much you can repair, and if you have a bigger site, capture more market, generate more income. And hence you would typically get a higher rate for rent if you were to rent.
Not necessarily, no.
Okay. That's all the questions I have.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Knight, any questions?
I do not.
Ms. McFadden, any questions?
I do not.
And I do not either. So that completes that item. So the next item on our docket this afternoon is Unit 20, 3965 Portage Avenue. So Mr. Pohl, we'll let you get there, and once you are, please proceed.
Roll number 075690333300. The address is 20, Unit 20, 3965 Portage. The 2023 assessment is for $2,135,000. We have a leasable area of approximately 9,113 square feet. If we skip ahead to our page 5, we see that square foot area, we have an attributed $15.16 a square foot. With our standard parameters applying, we then have, and I can go through it, I should go through it, to produce a potential rent of $138,153, 2% for vacancy, which gives an effective gross income of $135,390. Our expenses at 3%, non-recoverable, I should say, and shortfall at 6%, gives us a net operating income of $130,234. Cap gives us our value at $2,135,000. So same arguments that applied last time would apply to this one.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, any questions?
I have no questions.
Ms. McFadden, any questions?
No questions.
Ms. Knight, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
And I do not either. So Mr. Smith, please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you. So Unit 20, this was originally the Saturn dealership at Point West Auto Park. It's the second one on the roadway as you come in past Volvo. Then this is the next one. Saturn obviously went bankrupt, went out of business, and the Birchwood Group was not able to draw another mainline brand to this property based on the structure itself, both the size and the layout of it. Nobody was willing to put their brand in this particular building. So what they've done with the property since that time, they used it as a truck center for a while, where they were selling trucks of various brands out of the same building. And subsequent to that, it is now occupied by Birchwood Credit, where they sell used cars out of that property. So there is physical obsolescence here for the subject property, obsolescence of various kinds, as far as the main brands go. And that's, again, largely driven by the size itself. So for this property, the dramatically smaller size does have an impact. So our leasable area is 9,113 square feet. It's not, closer to 20, 17, 18,000 square feet where we might see a lift in the rental rate. This size is actually detrimental. So that being the case, we have applied $12 a square foot to our valuation for this particular property. It's really the only one that we go out of the model for because of that particular situation. So our summary of the valuation is shown on page 32. And you can see applying the $12 rate, all the other same parameters, including the infrastructure costs as we should, the final market value comes to $1,161,000. And that is my presentation.
Thank you. Mr. Pohl, any questions? Okay. Ms. McFadden, any questions?
No questions.
And Ms. Knight, any questions?
No questions.
And I have no questions either. Thank you. So we will move on to the next item on the docket, which is Unit 40, 3965 Portage Avenue. So Mr. Pohl, please proceed when you're ready.
Unit 40, 3965 Portage, roll number is 0756913500. The 2023 assessment is for $5,716,000. We have a leasable area of 29,060 square feet. Skipping ahead to page 5 of the brief. For that area, we have a $13.99 rent put on it. We have potential rent, which is $406,549. Our standard parameters apply. Vacancy at 2% produces a effective gross income of $398,418. Non-recoverable expenses at 3%, shortfall at $6, gives us a net operating income of $382,978. Capped gives us our $5,716,000. And with that, I'm open to questions if there are any.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, any questions?
I have no questions.
Ms. Knight, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Ms. McFadden?
No question.
Thank you. And I have no questions. So Mr. Smith, please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Unit 40, this is the Chevrolet dealership on site. My page number 3 gives you some history of the property, including the appeal background on it. 2020 and 2018 are under appeal at the municipal board. We're seeing a lift in value of 31.8% to the current assessment from 2020, which is still under appeal. I should have pointed out with the last one, we were looking at 44%. The background here, original structure built in 2000. There was an addition done in 2013. And the leasable area and all of that is there shown for you. This is one unit. It still has all the other issues, but its land to plan area ratio is a little bit closer to ideal. Still not, again, at that 8:1 ratio, but marginally different. I wouldn't change the cap for that. Again, we took into account vacancy in the capitalization rate as well as all the other risk aspects. It's not strictly a land to plan area ratio. So our leasable area, 29,060 square feet. And if we flip to page number 32, again, this is summarized. $12 a square foot is our rental rate. The other same parameters, including the infrastructure costs, 8% cap rate gives us $4,009,000. And the remainder of the brief remains the same. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Mr. Poole, any questions? Ms. McFadden, any questions?
I have no questions.
Ms. Knight, any questions?
No questions.
And I have no questions. Thank you. So that will take us to Unit 50, 3965 Portage Avenue. And Mr. Poole, you can proceed when you're ready.
Unit 50, 3965 Portage. Pool number is 075690333600. The 2023 assessment is $5,492,000. We have a leasable area of 27,414 square feet. Our income stream is on page 5. For that area, we have $14.14 applied to it for a potential rent of our PGI of $387,634. Our standard parameters do apply with 2% vacancy, which produces effective gross income of $379,881. Non-recoverable expenses at 3%, shortfall at $6, produces a net operating income of $365,195. Capped gives us our estimated value of $5,492,000. So that I'm open to questions.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, any questions?
I have no questions.
Ms. Knight, any questions?
No questions. No.
Ms. McFadden, any questions?
Sorry, I have one quick one. These are model generated capitalization rates because they're not all the same for each of these units.
No, and they wouldn't be because some of the areas are different sizes as well as some of the build dates are different.
Okay, thank you.
Like fluctuation in there.
Yeah.
It's just the first one we were speaking to. So
Thank you.
Thank you. And I have no further questions. So Mr. Smith, please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you. So Unit 50, we're dealing with the Nissan Infinity property for Birchwood in Point West. The background of the property is shown on page 3. 27,414 square feet. We have, again, a low land to plan area ratio at 3.97 to 1, so well under the 8:1 needed for this type of property. Original building built in 2001. And with the addition done in 2012, you can see both 2020 and 2018 are under appeal at the municipal board. So one thing I have not wanted, and you're free to obviously look at the photos of each of these. They're there for you to see interiors. One thing I haven't pointed out, I guess, is that we have lifted the rental rates that we've applied to these properties since the last cycle as well. So we are taking into account the the different valuation date in what's being applied to these properties here as well in our valuation. So my page number 34 will summarize our valuation. 27,414 square feet. So we've applied a rental rate of $12 a square foot. 2% vacancy, 7% expense allowance, shortfall, infrastructure costs, future infrastructure costs, cap rate of 8%, gives us our final market value of $3,612,000. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Poole. Any questions?
No.
Okay, Ms. Knight, any questions?
No.
Ms. McFadden?
I have none.
No, and I have none either. So that takes us to Unit 3965 Portage Avenue. Mr. Poole, when you're ready.
Bear with me for one moment. Okay. Unit numbers, or Unit 70, 3965 Portage. Rule number is 07569034400. The assessment for the 2023 cycle is $6,596,000. We have a leasable area of 32,903 square feet. And on page 5 of our workup. Sorry, on page 4 is our workup on this one. We have a applied rent of $14.15, which gives us a potential gross income of $465,577. Leasable, should say vacancy at 2% gives us effective gross income of $456,265. Expenses at non-recoverable expenses at 3%, and shortfall at $6 gives us a net operating income of $438,629. Capped gives us our value of $6,596,000. And that would be the valuation aspect of it. I just want to tie it in here, and there's no real good way to put it in. Just so we're clear, you mentioned it a little bit on, has this been appealed before, or is this at the municipal board? We have a significant amount of appeals on both ends sitting at the municipal board. Just for realty, we have over approaching 200. If we look at the business assessment type, it's in with that as well. It's considerably more than that. So most of these have been. We're waiting on a test case, which we do next spring. Aside from that, I haven't really gone through each and every single one of these have been appealed, because basically it's either us or that we've appealed it over the last few cycles. So not sure how much weight the board's going to put on what has been appealed beforehand or not. So with that, I'm open to any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, any questions?
Just to be clear, the 200 appeals aren't strictly Point West.
No. The entire Kirby district.
I would hope not.
I think the last count was about 214. We haven't updated the files yet, so depending on what happens.
So that's the whole universe.
Yeah, the whole universe of the last 3 or so cycles. So
yeah, that's my only question.
Ms. McFadden, any questions?
I have none.
Ms. Knight, any questions?
No, I do not.
And I do not either. So Mr. Smith, please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Unit 70, this is the Toyota dealership at Point West. We're looking at 32,903 square feet, originally built in 2005. And you can see the background on page 3. Well, built in 2004, 2005. I've got 2004. I think that was when it was originally done. And the assessment background is there for you as well. Photographs for you to see. And we can flip forward to the valuation. So certainly 32,000 square feet is getting up there. So let me find the correct summary page here. Our valuation for subject properties on page number 32. So we've applied $12 a square foot. All of the other same parameters included the infrastructure costs and capped at 8%. We have a final market value of $4,234,000. I would point out I've done a couple of newly built dealerships on behalf of Birchwood, and the cap rates that I applied there were 7.5%, and they were reflected in the decisions. That is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Poole. Any questions?
No, I do not.
Ms. Knight, any questions?
No, I do not.
Ms. McFadden, any questions?
I do not.
Okay, and I do not either. Okay, sorry, I'm just getting myself organized here. So what number we're on? All right,
Okay.
so we are now on, pardon me,
I think 75.
Unit 75. Yes, thank you. 3965 Portage Avenue, and Mr. Poole, when you're ready.
Unit 75 3965 Portage. Roll number is 0756903400. We have a leasable area of 24,159 square feet. On page 5 is our workup. Applied to that area is a $14.17 rent, which produces a potential gross income of $342,333. Our standard parameters apply. 2% for vacancy gives us our effective gross income of $335,486. Non-recoverable expenses at 3% and shortfall at $6 gives us a net operating income of $322,522. Capped gives us our capitalized, and that capped gives us our value of $4,887,000 rounded. So with that, I'm open to questions.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, any questions?
No questions.
Thank you. Ms. McFadden, any questions?
No question.
Ms. Knight, any questions?
No questions.
And I have no questions. So Mr. Smith, please proceed with your presentation on this property.
Thank you. So unit 75 is the Birchwood Honda West dealership. Page 3 again gives you a summary. Original building built in 99. There was an addition done in 2009. And we have a total leasable floor area of 24,159 feet. The photos begin on page 4 onwards, so you can see the interior of the showroom, etc., etc. All the rest remains the same for you. And the summary of our valuation is on page number 33. 24,159 square feet at rental rate of $12 a square foot. 2% vacancy, 7% expense allowance, shortfall amount of $6. Same methodology with the infrastructure costs and cap rate of 8%. Then less the future infrastructure costs gives us a final market value of $3,116,000. And that is my presentation.
Okay, Mr. Smith, just give me 1 second here because I'm there. Okay, good. Thank you. I had scrolled too far and was at a previous board order rather than your actual work up there. So I got it now and I see what you've done. Thank you very much. So Mr. Poole, any questions?
No, I don't.
Okay, Ms. Knight, any questions?
No questions.
Ms. McFadden, any questions?
No questions.
And I do not either. So thank you very much. So Now we're going to move to the final item on the docket this afternoon, which is Unit 100, 3965 Portage Avenue. And Mr. Pohl, please proceed when you're ready.
Unit 13965 Portage, the roll number is 075690-33900. The assessed value for the 2023 assessment is $5,934,000. Leasable area is 30,144 square feet. If we skip ahead to page 4 of our brief, that area applied is $14 a rent, which produces a PGI of $420,016. Vacancy is 2%, which gives us effective gross income of $413,576. Our non-recoverable expenses is again 3%, and our shortfall is at $6, which produces a net operating income of $397,552. Capped gives us our assessed value of $5,934,000. So with that, I'm open to questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Smith, any questions? Mr. Pohl. Thank you. Ms. Knight, any questions?
No, thanks.
Ms. McFadden, any questions?
Thank you.
And I do not either. So Mr. Smith, please proceed with your presentation.
Okay, Unit 100. This is the Birchwood Key West location. It's the last property on the road prior to exiting the auto park as you make the lap around. The 2023 assessment, $5,934,000. It's a lift from the 2020 assessment of $4,488,000, which is still under appeal to the municipal board. Our market value for the subject property is $3,894,000. Original property built in 99/2000. And we have a total area of 30,114 square feet. This property has gone through a rebrand. It was originally Chevrolet dealership as well. And there was some forced combining of dealerships. So they had to search out another brand for this property, and Kia is the brand that has been put in place for this property. Photos shown on the early part of the document. And we can move forward to my summary on page 33. So we have 30,144 square feet. I have 30,114. I believe based on the city's information that we took from their site. In any case, that's the figure that I have. We've applied $12 a square foot with all the other standard parameters. Again, we're applying our annual infrastructure cost prior to the net operating income, capped at 8%, then deducting the net present value of the future infrastructure replacement, giving us our final market value of $3,894,000.
Thank you. Mr. Pohl, any questions?
I do not.
Ms. McFadden, do you have any questions?
I do not.
Ms. Knight, any questions?
I do not.
Thank you very much. And I also do not have any questions. So since we've now heard all the items on this afternoon's docket, this hearing is now adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone. And thank you, gentlemen, for your succinct presentations in the latter part, but also for all of the great information you provided us early on in the hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good weekend, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. You too.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your patience as well.
You get a gold star.
That doesn't happen very often.